Welcome to Ayurveda and Spirituality with your host, Alakananda Ma, a renowned Ayurvedic expert and a graduate of a top London medical school. She is the principal of Alundi Ayurveda Gurukula, a unique apprenticeship-style school in Boulder, Colorado. She is a spiritual mother, teacher, flower essence maker, and storyteller. Join us as we uncover the timeless principles of Ayurveda, discover practical tips for enhancing vitality, and explore the deeper dimensions of spirituality that intertwine with the ancient science of life.
Namaste. Welcome to this podcast. Today we are talking about chronic illness burnout. So this actually applies both to individuals suffering from chronic illnesses and also to caregivers as well. So what is burnout? It's a state of emotional, mental, and often physical exhaustion that's brought on by prolonged or repeated stress. So actually, the WHO website states that burnout should only be applied to workplace stress, but in general, most people, most psychologists and so on, do go with a broader definition. So, though burnout is usually applied to work, it has now been broadened out to include other forms of stress. And today we're specifically looking at the stress of chronic illness. It's really extremely stressful because we have to still meet the same demands of everyday life that other people have to meet if we're well enough to meet those demands. We also have to manage our condition. So that can include doctor appointments, medicines we have to take, supplements we have to take, Ayurvedic remedies that we have to take. Um, It can include specific practices that we have to do throughout the day, like physical therapy practices, and so on. So all these things have to be fitted in on top of whatever demands of everyday life we have capacity to meet. Uh, a key example, very well known, is diabetes burnout. People living with diabetes basically have to take over a function that normally their own body, their autonomic nervous system, and their endocrine system is managing for them. So if you're living with diabetes, you got to deal with carb counting, blood sugar monitoring, managing your medicines, and planning ahead. Like if you want to go somewhere, you want to do something, you have to think about your medicines, your snacks, like all these different things. However, it's by no means only diabetics. I remember my late friend Jane did have some chronic conditions. It took her a long while to get out of the house because of having to plan and sort out her food and her supplements and everything she had to bring with her. It took her a really long time to go on a trip because, again, she had to plan out all the correct meals. She couldn't leave anything to chance, everything that she had to bring with her. And on top of that, actually being an adjunct professor and having a like big job in the real world, so to say. So even if we not living with diabetes, but we're living with some other kind of chronic condition, an autoimmune disease or a genetic disease like EDS, or a degenerative neurological condition, living with MS, living with Parkinson's, and so on. There's really a lot of things we have to plan ahead about. Maybe our illness, if it's MS or Parkinson's or EDS or indeed diabetes, has left us with motility issues. Maybe we have to plan whether things are wheelchair accessible, whether we can get there with our mobility aid, how how much extra time it's going to take us, whether we can get disabled parking. Really a lot of things we have to think about that other people may not need to think about. So any kinds of health crises, chronic illness, and also if you are managing the care of someone else with chronic illness. And right now we have our neighbor next door is looking after her father who has a neuro neurodegenerative condition, pretty rapid decline. With the support of her husband, she stays very cheerful, but she has upended her entire life and moved thousands of miles in order to care for a chronically ill loved one who is facing an inevitable decline. So she has to deal with her own emotions about her parent, as well as the fact that she really can't leave him for more than a few minutes at this point. So, what are some of the symptoms that signal to us that we may be suffering from burnout? Emotional symptoms include feeling trapped, feeling constantly overwhelmed. As it gets worse, you could start feeling emotionally disconnected from others, others who do not have to deal with what you have to deal with. Um, you might be feeling weighed down by just a persistent worrying about your condition, or feeling a sense of lack of purpose, like we see in Milton when he wrote his poem on his blindness. He felt that once he had become blind, his work as a writer was taken from him. Things you once enjoyed, maybe they're not pleasurable for you anymore. As it gets worse, you might find yourself irritable or short-tempered. Physical symptoms, you might see persistent fatigue and trouble sleeping. That's on top of whatever fatigue and whatever trouble sleeping is an inevitable part of your chronic condition. Now, burnout could be adding a whole other layer of fatigue and a whole other layer of sleep difficulties. On top of your regular symptoms, the stress and burnout itself could be giving you headaches. Body pains could be affecting your agni, making your appetite low. And you could also start seeing digestive issues like constipation or diarrhea or chest pain. Worst case scenario, seeing panic attacks because at this point you are so worried about your illness, and sometimes it's really hard to know, is this thing part of it? Is this thing dangerous? Do I need to go to an ER for this thing? Is this it? Then you can have panic attacks. You might also start to notice behavioral symptoms like difficulty concentrating, difficulty with task sequencing, difficulty completing your tasks. And if you are still working, that is really awful. And even if you're not working, you've got to run your household, you've got to take care of all your appointments, how you get to and from your appointments. So you can also start to withdraw from others, um, want to avoid your responsibilities. You might even become socially isolated, which is, in fact, the worst thing you can be. And yet, if you let burnout get to an extreme state, this could happen. So, this past year, I've had a crescendo of health issues that basically all relate to my hypermobile EDS situation. First, a year ago itself, I broke my wrist. Hypermobile EDS people have poor proprioception. We do have more slip and fall or trip and fall incidents than other people. Then, directly as a result of EDS and pelvic floor dysfunction and so on, I ended up needing emergency bowel surgery in November. And it was a long road recovering from a major surgery like that. And then, ironically, in the corridor leading to the hand therapist's office, I broke my shoulder because I dedicatedly walked there in ice and wind, and I was wearing my ice boots that were supposed to protect me from slipping, and I didn't slip until I got to the corridor where my ice boots grabbed on the carpet and threw me on the commercial carpet. And I broke my shoulder, same side, maybe luckily same side, non-dominant side anyway, thank God. I broke my shoulder uh, while I was on my way to get treated for my wrist. So by that time, I had ended up with 3 physical therapists, 3 sets of home exercises, appointments with, at one time, 3 surgeons because I also got dental problems and this thing and that thing. Just went on and on. I could be having 2 and 3 appointments a day. I could be having appointments before work, after work, just managing all the appointments, trying to book appointments with people in places where I could walk because that's my mode of transportation. Otherwise, sorting out the ride situation. Is it making you tired even hearing about this? It should make you tired even hearing about what I was having to deal with. So I'm a very cheerful natured person. I have a lot of warriorship, and as a pitta, I do love to tackle things. But at some points, when you've got fatigue and you've got major pain in 3 places and post-surgery fatigue and all of this, your your cheerfulness can get a little overshadowed. And I started to notice this state of constant overwhelm. So that was, I think, feeling overwhelmed a lot is one of the best early warning signs of chronic illness burnout. And if that's already happening to you, that's when we need to get onto it, not at the point where you're irritable, short-tempered, having panic attacks, and becoming socially isolated, because at that point it's really bad because you're alienating the very people that might be able to help you. So, yeah, get on it before it gets worse. What are the things that can help us with chronic illness, burnout? And remember, we're talking about the things that can help you also if you are the person managing someone else's appointment, taking someone else to and from their appointments, managing their meds for them, lifting them in and out of bed, etc., whatever it's taking to take care of your loved one. You need the same things. Counseling is really, really helpful. One of the first things I did when I kind of saw I have chronic illness burnout is get an appointment with my counselor and remembering to check in not just about your illness, but also about your mental health, whether that's with a psychiatrist, if things got really bad, if you were feeling depressed or having a panic attacks, whether that's with your Ayurvedic practitioner, whether that's with your counselor, you need to be checking in about your mental health and not just about your illness. Another thing that I found is really important is to try to find some practitioners that are empathetic and that understand your condition. One of the things that made me feel really, really overwhelmed was that have not been able to get an appointment with anyone that's a rheumatologist or a doctor that works with hypermobile EDS. So I was sort of like, I guess I've just got to do what I've had to do for the last 73 years, which is to manage it myself. But I do have some people in my life that do know about it. Actually, my therapist has had other patients with it. She's aware of it. She's understanding. Actually, my singing teacher has been a tremendous resource and is very much aware of it because she has a friend who is has the same chronic illness and is also working in that field. I've also found that my surgeon is very aware, and being able to go see the surgeon periodically just helps me to feel safe because then I feel I'm not managing this all by myself. And another big scary thing, such as happened when I had to have emergency surgery, isn't going to happen again because someone's looking after me. And also, my physical therapist knows about it. So just to be aware, if you are having physical therapy, you need to make sure that you're seeing a physical therapist who knows about your condition. Like if you have scoliosis, see a physical therapist who's expert in scoliosis. Otherwise, you might be given exercises that are literally bad for your scoliosis. If you have EDS, if you're hypermobile, make sure you're seeing a physical therapist who knows about this. A patient was just telling me, well, the physical therapist told me I had my muscles are too weak and I have to build my muscles. I'm like, well, yes, but it's not the problem is not the muscles. The problem is collagen, and it's not your fault. And we just got to do the best we can to strengthen, but we can't really win. So, um, make sure you regularly are seeing those practitioners, even if they're not a diabetes specialist or a neurologist or the main specialist in your condition. They are people who are empathetic, who understand your condition, and seeing them gives you a sense of safety, of not being alone. Hopefully, that's also going to be us as your Ayurvedic practitioner. Another thing that actually my therapist suggested to me and I found to be really helpful is joining a support group. Once you join a support group, you find out that you're not alone. Like with my hypermobile EDS, I basically have to always sit on the floor, or I have that one special chair in the entire ashram that is set up with the cushion behind me and the footrest such that I can sit on it. And if we have to do a chair-based event, I have to bring that chair to the relevant room. Well, that's weird, isn't it? Well, I found out in the support group. Yes, that's how us EDS people are. Sitting on chairs does not work for many, many of us. It wasn't just me. So just finding out that other people deal with the same things, that many other people struggle with it, have it way worse than you. Whoa. You may think you've got it bad, but once you're in a support group, you get to see what other people deal with, and you can also feel a little gratitude and appreciation for where you are. Another thing that lifelong has been helpful for me is journaling. It's something I started when I was 8 or 10 or whatever age you were back then when someone gave you a diary with a hard cover and a lock and a little key so you could record your secret thoughts in it, and you start writing about your important day in school and your important holidays. And pretty much I've been journaling ever since then, the same way that Anais Nin started her journaling when she was a little girl. Um, as with Anne Frank, having that secret friend, your journal, where you can write anything. There are no rules about what you put in your journal. You can rant in your journal if that's what you want to do. Or you can write very briefly, I'm too tired today to write much, but this thing happened. So journaling has always been a big support for me, and something I started recently that is giving me a little bit of sense of control or safety is keeping a symptoms log. So I personally just have a tabulated Word document, unlike my journal, which continues to be in beautiful, beautiful notebooks that I write with pen and paper. I write in my notebook with a pen. I do jot that down on the computer at the end of the day, and I jot down what symptoms I had, what time the symptoms occurred, any special practices or special stresses of that day. And I also just jot down what I ate just in case any symptoms would end up correlating with eating a specific thing or not. So just keeping a log like that can help you to track progress and just to have a little bit of a sense of it. It's not this amorphous, out of control thing. Another thing that I did when I realized that I had this state of constant overwhelm and that this is symptom number one of burnout was I talked to my lovely pelvic therapist, who is a very sympathetic person and understands about EDS. And I told her I was having burnout and that I have like 3 physical therapists and 3 sets of home exercise practice. Each one is short, but you got to add 3 together. What's going to happen? And we went over it, and she pruned everything she could prune from her end. We pruned away everything unnecessary just so I had a more user-friendly plan, and I now have a must-do plan. I still can't always must. Frankly, I cannot always do the must-dos as often as I must. Um, but it's actually, we talk about the 60-40 rule, but it's got to be better than the 60-40 if you're doing physical therapy, home exercise. It's got to be more like 9 out of 10, but you don't have to hit 10 out of 10 because you can't. Um, so just pruning away everything you don't have to do. Then I have the aspirational side of the list. This is what I'd really like to be able to do. And the rock bottom things that I have to do, 9 out of 10. And that fits with the next tip, which is to set realistic and flexible goals. This is something we learn over and over and over again as we're doing Ayurvedic self-care. I have taught self-care to students year upon year upon year upon year since 1998. Since 1998, and more especially and more intensely as the second incarnation of the Gurukul since 2008. And what I have seen is the first thing we do is have the students make their own self-care plan. And I see that the students make, however much I talk them through how to make a realistic plan, they make a way ambitious plan. We try to whittle it down. Then I say the next step once you've made your plan is keep your self-care journal. At first I had them turn in their self-care journal, but then we realized that can run into confidentiality issues for them with things they might not wish shared with a teacher. So now they send in a summary of what they learned from their self-care journal. They keep a journal showing what their plan was and how far they managed to go with it. But the basic learning always is, whoa, that plan was way too ambitious. So we can't do everything perfectly. I can tell you that back in the early to mid 80s, I decided, look, all I have to do is practice Ayurvedic self-care myself perfectly. And that's going to be one of the really important ways I'm going to learn to help others with Ayurveda. Well, not only can no one do anything perfectly, but I myself in particular, being a very natural and spontaneous person, have a special inability to do things perfectly because I'm always in the flow and I'm always putting others first. So, but what can I do? I have an open door policy. I put others first. I cannot do things perfectly, okay? So I learned that a few many years back, and now I just feel excited with what I do accomplish. So we talk about plan A times or days and plan B times or days. Plan A times are times when you make progress, when you climb the ladder of self-care. But by the way, I'm offering that self-care workshop to the public later this month. You can have a look on the website if you're interested in taking it on person or on Zoom, in person or on Zoom. But anyway, to get back to what I'm saying, with the plan A times, we're going to be climbing that ladder of self-care, making progress in all the areas of life, or at least making progress in the area we're focusing on. In plan B times, there's too much going on, illnesses, bereavements, moves. You're just trying not to lose ground. And honestly, like me dealing with two fractures, you do lose ground. There's no helping it. Just even I lost ground in the state of the house. Eventually I had to decide, my bedroom looks like the bedroom of someone that couldn't use their arm for a year, okay? It's just the way it is. I'm doing my best. Now I have to try to pick back up, even in the condition of everything. Or to speak of my own self-care, I couldn't do Abhyanga. I couldn't do Abhyanga for a year. Would you believe it? An Ayurvedic doctor who cannot give themselves an oil massage for a year. That was the true situation. So sometimes we actually do lose ground in certain areas inevitably. If it is diabetes, you cannot lose ground. You cannot reach the point of burnout when you do not let have your diabetes be controlled, because we can't afford that. Your diabetes has to be controlled. But yeah, with plan B times, we're just trying to cling on. Plan A times, we're just going along making progress. But we need to try to be realistic. And then scheduling breaks from focusing on our illness. Shabbat, maybe Shabbat's got to be that 9 out of 10 day when I don't do all the practices. I have special practices I really enjoy doing that day. Um, I took July off of appointments because I got so burned out of trying to coordinate all these appointments. I think I went one time in the middle of July for shoulder and wrist physical therapy, just so I could continue to enjoy myself by getting a little support there. But basically, I took time off. I just did the minimum home exercise program and kind of relaxed more. Um, Prioritize sleep if you can sleep, or at least prioritize at least giving yourself a chance to sleep. Resting, meditation. That's a really important one, and social support. Meditation is so important because that is the time and space when we have a chance to just rest the mind, be present, and be with what is. And all of that stress and worry, you don't make it go away. It's part of the what is. And by having that time of the allowing and the resting the mind and the being with what is, helps us to be with what is 24/7, coming back to being with what is. And then there's the social support, which is why it's really important not to leave things until you get to that end stage of being angry, huffy, irritable, and socially isolating, because you don't want to do that. We need the social support. We need the satsang. We need companionship. We need time with friends. It's been very interesting for Sadanand and me because we lost our very best friend a year ago and several other important friends. And at the same time, in the last 1 year, we have been blessed with some new friends, important new friends that we have made, and engaging with our important new friends and new explorations and new experiences with new people. And it all helps. So, just to summarize again, burnout is a state of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion. Although it originally applied to the workplace, it can be applied to other stressors. Watch out for the first warning symptoms of burnout from your chronic illness or your caretaking of someone with chronic illness, and then get on with it with taking care of your mental health and doing the things that will support you. Hope this helps. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Ayurveda and Spirituality with Alakananda Ma. We hope today's exploration has ignited a spark of curiosity and insight within you. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and share it with a friend. For more enlightening discussions and practical wisdom on Ayurveda and spirituality, subscribe and join our Facebook group, Alundi Ayurveda. To allow us to continue sharing valuable content, consider donating to Alundi Ashram. The links will be in the show notes. Until next time, may you walk the path of Ayurveda with grace and embrace the light of spiritual wisdom in your journey.
Trayambakam yajamahe Sugandhim pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva